Started streaming. It'll take a second.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, everyone? I turned down the lights in the background a little bit, so hopefully the camera won't autofocus as much. I think it should be a lot better. Plus, I'm not going to be moving around a lot. So today's video is called Creating a Songwriter Demo. So I have an old demo that I found when I was going through with my assistant Ken, or GL as some of you know him. We went through all the hard drives that we have, and there's many, many hard drives. There's a thing, I don't know if it's true, bit death, but eventually hard drives stop working, so you want to refresh them and copy them to new drives. And when I was doing this, I found an old demo that I did with a band Shinedown way back before the third record. The song did not make the record, even though it should have. But I wanted to kind of show you what the process of making a songwriter demo when you have a publishing deal, you know, and you're trying to get your single or your song as an album track or a single. And I'm going to show you the Pro Tools session. We're going to go over it, and I'm going to kind of show you how I put parts together, how I program the drums, and just the idea behind how to make a complete sounding demo. Now, I've talked about this in some of the videos about how the better a demo sounds, the more chance it has of getting picked by the producer or the A&R person or whoever it is. I mean, the producer, the A&R guy, the president of the label are all deciding what songs are going to get picked. And many times this goes on over months. So when Shinedown did their third record, it was 2008. So this song was from 2007, probably. And I tracked a lot of the instruments with real amplifiers, things like that. I had a basic drum program. You probably won't think it's basic, but I had to adapt it because the drum program I was using at the time doesn't exist anymore. I think it might have been BFD or something. So I had to move a few of the notes around to accommodate Easy Drummer is what I'm using for this. I decided I have Easy Drummer and I have Superior Drums, which I love. They're great for demos. I want to talk about kind of the parts that I put in and why I did what I did. But this is a very complete sounding demo. And I always would record things so that if they needed in the future to fly the vocals from something or whatever, let's say they couldn't get as good a vocal performance if the song got picked, then that would happen. Now, like I said, this song, thank you, Dylan, this song did not get picked for the record, even though it should have. But after I worked with him, this is the first song I wrote with him for this third record, which was The Sound of Madness. This is the first song that he wrote. And he probably wrote 50 songs for it. Typically, the songs that they write later are all the ones they pick because it's kind of anti-demoitis. Everybody thinks that their newest song is their best song, but I'm going to play you the song from the beginning. I think I'll play it through maybe one time, and then we'll talk about it. I'll isolate the parts. I'll talk about what came first, how we decided on what we did, and uses my recollections as well as I can. So I'm going to go over to a screen view here, and you'll see the display now. You'll see Pro Tools. Okay. So this is Pro Tools here. I'm going to refresh my stream. I have a second camera here. Okay, so there you guys are seeing what I'm seeing now. And I have the comments over on my laptop. When somebody sends there's a discount code, by the way, for today, like there always is. 20% off anything in my store, RB418. This is how I make a living. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not sponsored by any gear companies, nothing like that. I only make money essentially from people buying my book, my mugs, or my t-shirts in my store. I make a very small amount on views. All my big videos are demonetized because I use songs in them, which is fine. It's fine. As long as you guys keep supporting the channel, you can become a member of the Beato Club if you own my book. you can do that. And I want to announce something too that I always forget to announce. I have a podcast, okay? Now, you're probably thinking, well, since when? Well, I've had a podcast since last year, okay? I know a lot of you are thinking, like, what? You have a podcast? Yes, so I have a podcast. You can look it up in the iTunes store, Rick Beato Sounding Off, it's called. It's not the Sounding Off interview. It's basically the live versions, or it's the audio of my videos here. And you can be riding in your car if you have long rides, and you can click on there. I have 155 episodes. So I just loaded up my new assistant, Billy, who's in watching Aaron moderate the chat, is ended up putting up about 35 episodes yesterday, but there's 155 episodes on my podcast. So you can find it in the Google Play Store, you can find it in the Apple Store. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And there'll be more specific podcasts that are only podcasts coming in the future. There's no ads on it yet or anything. I thought about maybe putting some ads on there like all podcasts do, and maybe I can make up for some of this demonetization I get here. So here we go. Let me play you the song. It's a pretty hard rock song here, but what they wanted to do after the second record, the first record that I was produced some songs on and co-wrote a few songs, did really well. Did almost 2 million records or so, maybe 1.5 million, something like that, between 1.5 and 2. The second record did not do as well. I think it was a gold record. That was it. So it was very important for this third record to do well, which it did. It ended up being a platinum record as well. So I didn't work on the second record. They came to me for the third record. Brent came here, and he was here for, a couple weeks, and we wrote 9 songs together. And this is literally the first one that we wrote together. So I'm going to play it for you first so you can get a vibe for it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so let's see if this works.
Plant my seeds deep so that my roots
Okay, so if it sounds dated, it's, what is it, 12 years old? So this is really what was going on back in 2007. This was really the middle of the nu metal rock movement that was happening. And what the label was looking for at the time were songs that were more like Alice in Chains, like on the first record. Now, let me play you some of these. So these are really, these are unfixed vocals. Brent is a great singer here. And those of you that don't know Brent, I'm going to play the lead vocal here in the verse so you can check it out.
You know it starts with a look.
I'll take off the delay.
And then it ends with a lie. I should plant my seeds deep so that my roots won't die.
Then I went into a double track.
Do you wish I was more like you? Self-centered with no point of view.
Now Brent has an incredibly great scream. That's very Nirvana-esque, really. In the chorus, we doubled the vocals here.
I need to get myself right again. Take time to mend my feelings, 'cause they never change, they always stay the same.
Now it's very common to double the vocals. Obviously, that's something that's been going on since the Beatles. If you hear pretty much most rock bands from Nirvana or from the Beatles through everyone in grunge, every band, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, always doubled the vocals or tripled the vocals, even the harmony parts. If you watch a Behind the Music with Butch Vig, where he talks about trying to convince Kurt Cobain to double the vocals on Smells Like Teen Spirit, which he did. He doubled the vocals and they doubled the backing track. So that was a common thing to do. Now, as far as the guitar stuff that I'm doing here, these are both amp tones. This is this is a Marshall here. So here's the main two guitar parts. Now you can hear the amp buzz in there, right? I don't worry about stuff like that. It's not... if you cut out those things, it sounds weird to me. Then I have this little effects track going on here. And that's just a fill part that anytime you have gaps like that, it's nice to have a pad behind. Check it out. So that was kind of the idea there. We also have this other. Let me play you the bass tone here. The bass tone is a. It was definitely tracked with distortion. I want to say like a Sans amp. That's just a DI bass part there. Definitely. That's definitely an Ernie Ball bass right there. So let's talk about the drums a little bit. So this is, like I said, a programmed drum kit. When I programmed it, what I would typically do, what I like to do if I'm programming a drum part, no matter what it is, if you're programming like a progressive metal, whatever, it's always good to program the drums with the kicks and snares and the drums on one channel, and then put the cymbals on another channel. You can see that there's dynamic variation here, but there's really no dynamic variation between the kick and the snare because it's straight ahead here. So let me play that for you. Where is this thing here? Go back from the bass. I'm gonna move the bass up near the drums. So here's the drum part. Like I said, you want to be able to control the cymbals separately. So I would.
With a look, and then it ends with a lie.
Hold on, let me do this here. So here's my demo drums, right? It says demo drums on it. This is Easy Drummer. Let me just show you. This is just like a stock drum kit that I'm using here. Way too many toms. You don't need that many toms. But I'm not using that many toms. And here's the cymbals. Now I also have another kick in here to add some more low end to it. Listen. Without that, I also have some crashes that I put in to reinforce at the time, because the crashes in BFD back then were really bad sounding. So when you hit the chorus, it hits this. Here's without it. See, it doesn't nowadays. All these sample libraries like Easy Drum or Superior Drums, they are really good. The cymbals are incredibly well recorded. You had to do this stuff back in the old days, is you have to place in some samples for demos like this, because they just sounded, I always thought they sounded terrible. And then let me play the drums and the bass together so you can kind of hear what that sounds like. So here's the where to do the bass here. It's got up here somewhere. Yeah, there's the bass. So you can hear the bass and the drums. Nothing's quantized here except for the drums are, but now let me put it all together again. So the pre-chorus, I decided to go to a marching snare part. Now to bring it into the chorus, to make it a little bit more exciting, this is very common. You see this in EDM music, you see it in all types of music, using swells. Max Martin, it doesn't matter who it is, rock bands, Alice in Chains, everybody uses stuff like this. Just two. That's like a backwards piano and just a piece of feedback, right? That leads you right in. Check it out, see if you can hear it. I raised it just so you could notice it. It should be just loud enough just to kind of drag you into the chorus. Now here we have what is called a vocal overlap. This is very common in songs. When you have a line that you don't want to have, that actually crosses another one, you have to put them on separate tracks. So I say lead vocal 1, lead vocal 2. This is very common. It doesn't matter what kind of song. Any contemporary songs are like this too. If you have a lead vocal with a double and you have an overlap, you can see this line actually bleeds over onto the next one. So this sounds natural. You'll notice that in tracks when you listen on the radio that'll have, something like that has what we call an overlap. Now in the chorus, this is actually, to me, the best part of the song is actually the guitar part here. There's a couple little, I have this chorus guitar. Wait, let me do this here. Move these up here. So I have, I can't remember what I did. So here's the main chorus guitars. But then I added this higher one and this high one. Now here they are. I just raised it. Listen. So those high guitars then come in the chorus. They typically, back then, what you'd want to do is you want to have some type of a color guitar part. Now this is, if you listen to any contemporary rock music, Periphery or Animals as Leaders, any modern rock bands that are current, you will hear things like that. They may be in the form of riffs, but you'll hear some type of added guitar parts that come in the chorus that will signal that it's the chorus, something to make it go to the next level that's an overdub guitar part that are many times put up the center. So these main guitars are hard pan. They're just two left and right guitars. But I've got these guitars, these other parts. There, I put them at the center. So that just fills in the center channel there. Now you have to be careful you're not competing with the voice. That sounds better with that up the center. You can hear the stereo spread then of the hard pan guitars and then the guitars in the center. Check it out. And then you want to think about how your bass tone interacts with the guitars there, right? So that's kind of that was really the basis of this. So if I had made a simple acoustic demo on this, it never would have had a chance to get on a record. And this goes for any type of thing that you're doing, whether you're songwriting today. You always want to make things. I'm going to come back to the camera here. Let's see here. Go like this. You always want to have your demos sound as close to the original as possible. That's really the way that you get that you're going to get your song. That's really how the best chance that you're going to have for getting a song placed on a record. And the other thing, I told this story a while back. There's a band I worked with that it's a band that Rhett worked with as well, that we did a demo, very, very basic demo. And the two singers loved the vocals so much that it ended up, even though T-Bone Burnett produced it and then somebody else produced it, they always wanted to come back. They always want to come back to the original vocals because most people get demo-itis. By the time you get around to making a record, they'll have X amount of demos. And just to give you a point of reference, for one of the Jason Aldean records, I remember 5 years ago or so. So this, I've had a publishing deal since the early 90s or so. So labels would have me come in and ask me to write write with bands. And they would typically say, most of the bands I would know who they were and everything, and they'd come in. It usually would be the lead singer would come in, and then you would make a demo of it. In the old days, it was hard. Before pre-Pro Tools, it was very difficult. Then you would get into, you'd have to do acoustic demos, or do things on cassette. I mean, I've got like the cassette versions. They're probably out on YouTube of Super Unknown, for example, with Chris Cornell, and he had really good 4-track demos, incredibly good 4-track demos. It sounded really realistic, but you can't leave anything to the imagination. But Jordan just said that. This goes for film composing too. If you listen to the Junkie XL Tom Holkenborg interview that I did, Tom talks about the fact that there's nothing you can't you. The people that you're playing this stuff for typically have no imagination. Whether it's an A&R person, the president of the label, the director of a film, you always need to do things that are, well, this is pretty much what it's going to sound like. You know, you program drums, you put in the whole orchestration of something. John Williams is one of the only guys that would come out and he had so many huge film scores, and he really worked with the same people all the time, and he could do a piano score of something. He would play the theme. If there's a great video on YouTube of him playing the E.T. theme for Steven Spielberg. Martin said they can't extrapolate. That's right. They can't imagine what it's going to sound like. Now, John Williams did a great one where he's playing the piano, and it's really the piano part from E.T. And he was never in danger of losing the gig, but most people are in danger of losing gig. That's why you see the same people doing film scores. That's why a lot of these film composers will be working on multiple scores at the same time. Maybe they'll have 10 people working for them, something like that. But they'll work on maybe the main themes. They'll have people doing sound design, things like that. But if you give up a gig, let's say you make a connection with a director and you do a film that's successful, and you tell them that, well, I don't have time, I'm doing another movie right now. Well, you can't really tell them that because they're bound to go and find someone else to make a movie with that ends up being their person for the next, maybe for the rest of their career. I mean, Steven Spielberg pretty much used John Williams all the time. Now, if you're a songwriter, you don't necessarily have that luxury. I know today's movies, most of the demo stays in the final cut. So that's the thing, is that you have to be really facile with your demoing process. I just got Cubase that I installed, and I had a demo of yesterday. Now, a lot of film composers use Cubase, so I really want to understand workflow of Cubase, and I've started with a template yesterday, and putting together a groups of the orchestral instruments. I opened up multiple instances of Contact, and I start putting in. I did my strings, I did my woodwinds, I did my brass. Okay, and then I have some instrument tracks, audio tracks to do other things on. And I'm using these for a different reason. They're going to be demos for episodes here. But in a sense, when I'm making a demo for an episode, I want it to sound as realistic as possible. Now, at the time when I did this, 2007 with this thing with Brent, we were still programming drums and things like that, but I had a studio where I could have tracked drums. But typically, you want to get the stuff done as fast as you can, and you want to move on to the next thing, right? So knowing that I was figuring I probably wasn't going to be the producer of the record. A lot of times when you're brought in as a songwriter, and I had a few tracks that were cut for that record, for their third record. But the track I was talking about, the T-Bone Burnett tracked, and another producer, that song, they ended up coming back to my original demo because they had demo-itis so badly, as I mentioned that in my demo-itis video. So you always want to record, when you're doing demos, especially vocals, singers really get attached to their vocal performance when you make a demo. So you want to record it as well as possible. That's where you take the time. Guitar parts, stuff like that, yeah, it's important. I got buzzes on the things. It doesn't matter. I do the bass part in one pass. I do the guitars in one pass. I don't care if there's amp buzzing or anything like that, as long as it gets the idea across. But I'm going to make sure that the vocal is not overloaded, that there's not any weird things with it, that I get it as in tune as I can. There's no auto tune on here. Brent doesn't need auto tune. He's a phenomenally good singer. And I will use a pro, vocal chain. So on this, with Brent, on this one, I probably used, Brent's the only singer that I used a 414 for, believe it or not. I used I used an old TL2. The TL2 was in the 80s, around 86, they made the BULS, the 414. Those are the ones to me that are really good. Well, the best ones are the 414s that they made with the C12 capsules, the old ones, but those are really expensive if you can find them, if they're in shape. But the 414 is one of the few vocal, I can't think of anyone other than Brent that I used a 414 for the vocal. Now, I've used 414s on everything else. They're killer mics. Sting used a 414. I believe that was his vocal mic of choice. So I used that. I went through a Neve 1073 through an LA2A. Through an 1176. With Brent, because he had an incredibly dynamic voice, probably the loudest voice of anyone I ever worked with, I would always need a second compressor. When you work with really loud singers, it's very common to have a second compressor that will get the transients that get through the first compressor. And Brent could overload a mic in 2 seconds. And there's another thing I want to mention here. When you're putting up a mic for someone, okay, don't put the mic straight on facing the vocalist. If you ever see in pictures, they always angle the mic away like that. You guys ever see that? There's a reason for that. The reason is that you don't want to have a parallel surface with the mic where it can overload the diaphragm by an incredibly loud voice. So by going like that, it doesn't hit the diaphragm in the same way. And typically you're going to be using it's off axis. I just said that. Typically you're going to be doing that with a condenser mic. Now, if you're using an SM7, a Shure SM7, I'm going to want the singer to be way up on the mic. And I want to use, since that's it's a large diaphragm dynamic mic, and you want to eat the mic. If you look at people that are broadcasters, there are two broadcast mics that everyone uses, the Shure SM7 and the Electro Voice RE20. Every talk show, watch Joe Rogan, they use all SM7s. So you want to really be up on that. SM58s can work, but SM7's really a pro mic to track vocals with. I have mine, but it's in the other room. So this is an industry standard, and Chris Cornell SM7, Bonnie Raitt SM7. I mean, they've been around forever. SM7s, if you're going to spend money, an SM7's about $375. Eat the mic, just don't cup it. Poo Ninja just said. That's right. Don't touch the mic. If you watch the making of Blood Sugar Sex Magic, I think that's the video where Anthony Kiedis is singing and he's holding the mic like this. He's singing through an SM7. And he would hold it like that. Eddie Vedder sang through an SM7. These are really common mics. That if I was going to spend money for one vocal mic, that's what I would do. I would spend it on a SM7. I wouldn't buy a condenser mic. Condenser mics are great. I'd buy a condenser mic, a large diaphragm condenser, second. And I would spend as much money as you can spend to buy a good one. But you can buy a decent Shure mic for one of their condensers. You can buy an Earthworks microphone as a condenser mic. I love Earthworks microphones. You can buy a Blue microphone. You can buy a Neumann U67. I don't care for the U87s. They don't sound good to me. Trunk, yes, the KSM model. A Rode mic, one of their condensers, the NTK or the they make some very good microphones. But Bono recorded with an SM58. So you can see him on his, Rattle and Hum, where his vocals sound amazing. Many times Bono would sit in the studio, in the control room, with the speakers on and hold the mic and sing like that. Victor just said KSM 32 or 44. Okay, the 32 is a cardioid mic. It's a lot cheaper. The KSM 44 is the multi-pattern version of it. So those are perfectly good mics, and they will work for the condenser mics. Are not only for voice, they're for acoustic guitars. They can be for miking your amplifier. Although I prefer to use a 57 and a Royer 121, a 57 and a Sennheiser 421, or a 57 and a 414, or it could be a KSM 32. So if I were to have, just a few mics, I was going to get one ribbon mic, I'd get a Royer 121. Then I would buy a 57, a 421, I'd buy an SM7. If that's all the money that you had, that's a good, if I was going to start buying mics for a drum kit, I'd get some Earthworks for overheads. I would get, I'm saying that, and I'm using a Samson mic right here. That's a USB mic to talk through. And the reason I'm using that is because my good friend Pete Thorne uses that for his live streams, and it has an instrument input in the back, and I can plug in my guitar through my Helix right into it, because everybody always complains when I use my amps that it clips the microphone on here, or not that microphone, but it would clip the microphone. So the last few live streams I've been using my Helix. By the way, I have Helix presets for sale on flat5.com. Aaron, if you want to paste that link in there, I've got 3 sets of Helix Stomp presets, and I have the full-size Helix presets for that as well that I developed with my assistant GL. So this is really important to this whole idea of making good sounding demos. Remember, no one has an imagination. Wait, did somebody just said selling presets come on? Okay, I'm going to come on. There we go. How do you like that, GTTV, whoever you are? That's what you get for come on. Yeah, selling presets, bro. That's how I pay for this coming on here and doing 650 videos for free. Get it? God, what's wrong with people? GTTV. What? Banhammered. Boom! I know you guys, we haven't had a banhammer here on Aaron banhammers people. I don't get to banhammer people very often. I haven't banhammered. I'm going to start banhammering people more. Let's see here. Rick should be in the next Star Wars. I'm ready to be in the next Star Wars. That guy must work for WMG. I know, exactly. So that's my advice for today for songwriters. Never make an acoustic demo as a songwriter. It will never, ever get placed. Never. When you go to Nashville, they when you do a songwriting session, every songwriter, everybody in Nashville has publishing deals. So every 3 months or so, your publishing company will give you money to go to make demos. Nowadays, you don't do it as much because a lot of times you'll have a producer that will be a track guy, or you'll have a guy, one of your writers will be a track guy and be able to create a track. That's what I did when I was doing my Nashville demos. But many times you go into a demo studio with session players, and they'll typically do at least 3 to 4 sessions throughout the day. They'll do up to 18 songs, and the guys will get it's just like a regular recording session. It's just they don't get paid as much. So you'll usually choose between you and your publishing company will choose what songs they want you to record, and they'll give you a budget to record there. So, and what would happen is you'd go in, if you were so I'd be a co-songwriter with somebody else, and I would come in and say, okay, be there at 12:30 or so. I'd show up at 12:30, and there would be somebody leaving their song that had just been demoed. It'd usually be 2 people, and then I'd come in with another person, and then the main songwriter would be there, and then we get our song tracked, and then we'd leave. So typically somebody would do 5 songs in a session, something like that, in a 3-hour period of time or so, and you get a couple passes, but that's and then the producer on the demo session would mix it, or sometimes I would take the tracks home and I would mix them myself. But you'd be having all pro players, and that's and they would be really, really great sounding demos. So there you go. That's all I have to say on that topic. So this is an important thing, though. If you get anything out of this channel, if you really want to get tracks cut, because people still make money by having songs placed, whether you're Max Martin, whether you're somebody with your laptop in your home studio, you got to find a way in and out of your DAW. You want to record your vocals as well as you can. If you're going to spend money, buy one nice mic pre and one compressor. Okay, if you're using the Apollo like I'm using here, that has plugins. You can use their console technology, and you can go directly through a Neve 1073 and you can go through a 1073 and and any compressor of your choice, and you record with, I don't know what Spanky said. My buddy Spanky said it was 2 milliseconds of less than 2 milliseconds of latency, which is incredibly good. Okay, so Beato book, anything in my store, RB 418. Thank you, Mark. Thank you everybody that contributed on the chat here. It's greatly appreciated, and make great demos. Don't always make sure your vocals are as good as they can be and the songs sound complete as they are. Okay? Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.